There are many reasons that make the fall of the Roman Empire one of the greatest tragedies of human history. From the lost marvelous and beautiful architecture of antiquity with its splendorous temples, statues, impressive domes, large baths and impressive imperial fora, to the lost works of many great philosophers of ancient Greece whose works were held in many great libraries throughout the empire, to the loss of surprisingly advanced technologies of science and engineering. In this video we are going to explore the most advanced Roman technologies that were in use in the time of the Roman Empire, which were lost when the Imperium Romanum fell and had to be rediscovered many centuries later. 1. Advanced engineering. Roman concrete. The Romans are sometimes unfairly accused of having copied technologies from others and just having refined them. But we shall see during the course of this video that this is not true, as most of the inventions in this video here are purely Roman ones. And Roman concrete is such a purely Roman invention that was so far ahead of its time that in some regards it is still superior to concrete we use in our modern time. For one, Roman concrete is much more durable and long-lived, especially against exposure to water, and has a much lower environmental impact than modern concrete. Already by the 2nd century BC, the Romans had perfected their concrete mixture. They were already able to build underwater structures using submerged concrete pouring, structures that sometimes survive to this day, as for example in the old city of Caesarea. The dome of the Pantheon is another instance where Roman concrete was used, allowing to create an unprecedentedly large dome. The Romans achieved the extreme durability of their concrete by adding volcanic ash called pozzolana to the ancient mixture. Some modern-day concrete pouring companies are actually trying to emulate the Roman concrete, replacing the volcanic ash with coal fly ash, which offers similar properties. It reduces costs by as much as 60%, has a smaller environmental footprint by lower carbon emissions, and offers a much longer lifespan than our modern concrete. It is fascinating to see that the Romans were so ahead of their time with their concrete that we are actually copying them even today. 2. Aqueducts. Another astounding feat of Roman engineering are the giant aqueduct systems which they built, that supplied the large cities of the empire with fresh water. The Aqua Claudia, for example, completed under Emperor Claudius in 52 AD, supplied Rome with 192,000 cubic meters of fresh water per day, brought to the city from a distance of 69 kilometers. At its highest point, this imposing aqueduct rose to an incredible 33 meters above ground near the Palatine Hill. But aqueduct constructions in other parts of the empire were even more incredible. The aqueduct supplying the city of Decapolis with water had a section 106 kilometers long, dug through a mountain. This is the longest known tunnel of antiquity. To make it even crazier, the tunnel has an inclination of only 1 meter per 5 kilometers. Even today, this would be a challenging feat, and modern measuring equipment would be needed to construct a tunnel with such an extremely low inclination. Or the 50-kilometer length aqueduct that supplied Nemausus, modern-day Nîmes, with water. This aqueduct's average gradient was also extremely low, with only 1 in 3,000. It led over an extremely impressive aqueduct bridge, the famous Pont du Gard. So we see that the Romans were master builders and built on a level that would even today pose some challenges to modern day engineers. 3. Gargantuan buildings. But the Romans were also pioneers of building truly massive buildings or building complexes. The baths of Caracalla, for example, completed in 217 AD, covered a surface area of 100,000 square meters or 10 hectares, were in parts 40 meters high and boasted a dome of around 36 meters of diameter. Then we have the Basilica of Maxentius, the last large building built at the Forum Romanum and finished in 312 AD. The side walls of this building still survive to this day and are suspended 39 meters above the ground level. Or the largest Roman temple ever built, the Temple of Jupiter at Heliopolis, also known as Baalbek. A few of the giant columns of the temple are still standing. They are 20 meters tall and 2.5 meters wide, the largest pillars ever built in antiquity. And we have no idea how the Romans managed to erect these giant pillars. It is speculated that they must have constructed a very capable crane only for this purpose, in order to be able to erect these massive columns that weigh dozens of tons each. The heaviest blocks of the surviving part of the temple weighed as much as 100 metric tons, and they had to be raised to 20 meters above the ground. A truly incredible feat of engineering. Interesting side note, the Temple of Jupiter was constructed on a platform. This platform contains some truly gargantuan cyclopean stones, some of which weigh 800 tons. It is quite unknown how such massive stones were moved in ancient times. To make it even crazier, in the quarry nearby, stones were found where extraction had already started, weighing 1,200 tons and one even 1,600 metric tons. However, these stones were left in the quarry. It is thus with utter disbelief when we see what incredible feats of building mastery the Romans or the ancients in general were capable of, since lifting such stones would pose a technological challenge even today. And please like this video and subscribe, and also turn on the bell so that you won't miss any future videos on the fascinating era of the late Roman Empire. How did it fall? Why did it fall? What would you have seen in that time? And you can now even support our work on Patreon or via becoming a YouTube member, so that we can continue for many years making lots of videos on the late Roman Empire. Gratias agut tibi, amici. 4. Arches. The Romans were also the first to understand the load-bearing capacity of arches. They made frequent use of them in many aqueducts and bridges, but also in regular buildings. The Alcantara Bridge in modern-day Spain is an excellent example of the immense load-bearing capacity of which Roman structures were capable. These arches have a width of almost 29 meters and a height of 45 meters, built so sturdy as to give this marvel of ancient bridge building a load-bearing capacity of 52 metric tons. This means that even some modern military tanks could roll over that bridge without making it collapse. 5. Giant domes. But the Romans were also master dome builders. We already mentioned the 36-meter diameter dome of the huge baths of Caracalla, but of course the most famous such structure is part of the Pantheon. The Pantheon, this magnificent temple first built by Marcus Agrippa, but rebuilt by Hadrian himself and finished around 126 AD, has an extremely large dome measuring 43.3 meters in diameter. To put it into perspective how far ahead of its time that was, it would take 1,300 years until an only slightly larger dome of 45 meters diameter was constructed with the Florence Cathedral in 1436. But still, to this day, the Dome of the Pantheon is the largest dome built out of non-reinforced concrete in the world. 6. Amphitheaters. The most famous Roman amphitheater is of course the Amphitheatrum Flavium, commonly known as the Colosseum. Construction began on orders of Emperor Vespasian and finished under his son Titus in 80 AD. The structure is an oval, 189 meters long, 156 meters wide, and 48 meters high, with the arena being an oval 87 meters long, 55 meters wide, and surrounded by a 5-meter high wall. The outer wall alone is estimated to have contained 100,000 cubic meters of travertine stone, held together by 300 metric tons of iron clamps. It could hold around 50 to 80,000 spectators, the exact number probably somewhere in between, and had such an organized seating arrangement that it could be completely evacuated in just 10 minutes. To achieve that, it had 80 entrances at ground level, where each entrance was numbered as was each staircase. This impressive building was so far ahead of its time that it served as a blueprint for modern stadium constructions in the early 20th century. Again, a case where we were inspired by ancient Roman technology in our modern times. 7. Huge road network. The Romans are of course also famous for their infrastructure, which they had advanced to an unparalleled degree in the ancient world. The late empire's 113 provinces were interconnected by 372 main roads that equaled a total length of 400,000 kilometers. There were many outposts along the roads, many post stations, and even lodgings for travelers. When the Roman Empire fell, so did this advanced infrastructure network fall, and it would take again a long time, 1,000 years, until the infrastructure of Europe would again rise to such levels of advancement as in Roman times. 2. Roman mining. We know that the Romans were also excellent steel workers. It is thus clear that they had to mine large quantities of iron ore, but especially for their gold and silver coins, large quantities of precious metals had to be mined. And the Romans mined on such a vast scale that we could really call this an industrial level mining operation in some parts, unrivaled again in its scale until the modern age. We think that only we in our modern times can have a significant impact on large landscapes with huge mining operations, but the Romans prove us wrong. In the Spanish region of León lies an unusual landscape called Las Medullas. What is so special about this landscape is that it is man-made. The Romans had mined gold here on such a grand scale as to make entire mountains disappear, and what is left now has thus this strange shape. For around 250 years they washed out huge quantities of earth from these mountains using hydraulic power. It is estimated that 40 million cubic meters of earth were removed from the central zone of the mountain range alone. What we can see on this picture is only a small part of what were once the original Medulla Mountains. A mountain containing 200 billion cubic meters of material disappeared completely. This resulted in at least 1 million kilograms of gold that was mined here in its 250-year activity. It is remarkable that ancient civilization already had such a huge impact on landscapes, something that had been thought to be a purely modern-day phenomenon. The Romans show us again how far ahead of their time they had been. 3. Computers. We think of computers as an invention of the modern age. However, in 1901, divers discovered a strange device in a shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera. Although this device is Greek in origin and strictly doesn't belong on this list, it dates from the 1st to 2nd centuries BC and thus is quite likely from the era when Greece was already annexed by the Romans and incorporated into the growing Imperium Romanum. This machine, encased in a housing of 34 x 18 x 9 centimeters, is a complex arrangement of many gears and gear wheels with a precision as was thought only possible in modern clockworks. It is thought that with it, one could predict the position of the sun and moon, the moon phases, eclipses, calendar cycles, and perhaps even the location of planets. Analog computers of such a complexity were again built only as late as the 19th century. 4. Roman nanotechnology. But if you thought that analog computers in antiquity are bizarre, the Lycurgus cup will prove that the Romans were capable of things that modern researchers had thought impossible. The Lycurgus cup is such an example. It dates from the late Roman Empire, the late 4th century AD, so an era where we would think that feats of advanced technology were not possible anymore due to the empire's decline. The cup is special because it is made of a type of glass that appears green in reflected light but red in transmitted light, so when the light is passing through it. To achieve that, the Romans extracted extremely small gold and silver nanoparticles, only around 70 nanometers in size, and mixed these nanoparticles with the glass. It is completely unknown how exactly they extracted such small particles that can only be seen with an electron microscope from the gold and silver. It is very unlikely that they had actual knowledge of nanotechnology, but they understood that they were extracting something very small and what effect this would have. 5. Irrigation system, running water and heating systems. The Romans also built a quite modern irrigation system into their cities. Most famous of all is of course the Cloaca Maxima of Rome. But they also built vast networks of water pipes, supplying fresh water from the aqueducts to baths, households, and fountains. The pipes were made out of lead, with debate still ongoing what effect this lead might have had on the well-being of the Romans. This shall be explored in a different video, but to anticipate it, possible lead poisoning ranks very low on the list of possible reasons as to why the empire fell. The Romans also employed floor heating, the so-called hypocaust, where hot air was circulated below the floor. This was used in villas of wealthy individuals for floor heating, but it was also used in the Roman baths in order to heat the warm water pools, the so-called caldariums. We can see again how modern the Romans were in many regards of everyday life. 6. Surgical instruments. The Romans also pioneered surgery based on prior works by the legendary Hippocrates himself, but they advanced it to a level unknown before in the ancient world. They used a variety of surgical procedures using many types of different instruments such as forceps, scalpels, and catheters. There were even forms of plastic surgery where deformations could be reversed or different parts of the body could be reshaped in order to achieve a beauty standard, really not too different from nowadays. There were even procedures to remove cataracts, to stitch complicated battle wounds, and many more. Aulus Cornelius Celsus was a true pioneer of Roman medicine, and he, for example, described many different types of diseases, wounds and ailments, and how to treat them in very often surprisingly modern ways. Some Roman medici even specialized in anesthesiology. The anesthetist would administer a powdered mandrake in a draught or wine. The sedative powdered corn poppy was often added to the wine. A local anesthetic used in surgery was a mixture of memphitic stone and henbane seeds ground up and smeared on areas about to undergo surgery. Quite impressive and certainly a lot more advanced than later medieval medicine. 7. Giant watermills. Now we are getting to the section where we hopefully will understand that Rome was not as far away from some sort of industrial revolution than we sometimes believe. The Romans built a watermill complex at Barbegal, located near modern-day Arles. which was called arelate in Roman times. In order to supply the 30 to 40,000 residents of Arelate with flour for the baking of bread, they built a truly astounding complex of mill houses employing a total of 16 water wheels. The power of water was here converted on a truly industrial scale, yielding an incredible 4.5 metric tons of flour every single day. So we can see that the Romans did make use of the power of nature and did not rely on slaves to do all the work. It is thus conceivable that an industrial revolution could have happened, a notion which we shall explore in a separate video. But the Romans also built huge water wheels, so-called norias. Even though none have survived from Roman times, they are depicted on quite a few mosaics. Here, in a mosaic from the era of Constantine, so from the early 4th century. Then another one dated surprisingly late, from 469 AD, and even one from the later Eastern Romans from the era of the Emperor Justinian, from the mid-6th century AD. It is thought that the medieval era norias of Hama are a direct evolution of older Roman era water wheels from that region. The Roman water wheel technology was also picked up in the medieval era by the Cistercian monks, who would build on that technology, refine it, and this would contribute in some form to help sparking the Industrial Revolution. So we can say that even though the Romans did not industrialize themselves, their industrial application of water wheel technology did contribute in some form to spark an industrialization long after their empire had fallen. 8. Advanced machines. If you thought that giant watermill industrial complexes sound already a bit steampunk, then this here will be certainly to your liking. The Greek mathematician and engineer Hieron, who lived in Imperial Roman era Alexandria, the intellectual capital of the Imperium, was a genius who invented many astounding machines. And his aeolipile was a precursor to the steam engine. Here, water in a spherical vessel was heated by fire, and the resulting steam would exit via two bent orifices, arranged such as to convert the motion of the steam into a circular motion. Thus, effectively a steam engine precursor was created, where the energy of steam was used to create mechanical motion. However, unfortunately, Hieron didn't see the potential behind this invention and only saw it as an amusing toy. We can only speculate what would have happened had he understood the potential of his aeolipile, and in fact, this will serve as a branching point for a future what-if alternate history video. 2. Automatons, programmable computers, and an automatic temple door opening. But Hieron's genius went even further. He built the first known automatons, basically some sort of robot precursors. Thus we can call Hieron a pioneer of robotics or cybernetics. He also built an elaborate automated door opening mechanism for a temple, where it seemed for visitors that the temple doors were opening magically as if directed by a divine power. And he even built what can be understood as programmable computers by a complex arrangement of ropes and knots that would operate figures in a theater play. Thus, the entire theater sequence would be performed on its own. Truly some marvelous technological accomplishments. 3. Nero's rotating platform. Another astounding example for a machine of the Roman period is Nero's rotating dining platform. The Emperor Nero had a rotating circular platform built on the Palatine Hill, quite likely after the Great Fire of 64 AD. Here, guests could sit on the platform that was part of a larger dining room complex and enjoy the spectacular view of Rome in a slowly rotating manner. The machine was quite complex. An array of interlocked gear wheels translated the horizontal motion of the river into a rotating motion of the platform, and bronze spheres acted as ball bearings under a layer of several wooden floors. Quite a magnificent piece of engineering. After Nero's reign had turned tyrannical in his later years, the rotating dining platform was built over under his successors and had only been discovered in 2009. 9. Greek fire. The Romans invented quite a few military technologies that would go beyond the scope of this video, but one should be mentioned here that was so advanced that it basically saved the later Eastern Romans many times from disaster. This weapon was used by the Eastern Romans starting in the second half of the 7th century, based on the invention of Kallinikos, an artificer who had fled his hometown of Heliopolis from the Muslim invaders. The exact recipe of the compound used to feed the flame is still unknown. However, there are some educated guesses as to its exact composition. It must have been based on crude or refined petroleum of sort, comparable to modern napalm. It burned on and could not be extinguished by water, making it such a powerful weapon in naval warfare. This terrifying naval weapon would save the city of Constantinople many times from foreign invaders, especially from the Umayyad Caliphate. It is quite possible that the city would have fallen a lot earlier had the Eastern Roman Greeks not had this weapon. 10. Flexible glass. This one is a bit shrouded in mystery and we cannot be 100% sure of its authenticity. The story of the flexible glass, called vitrum flexile, was made famous by Isidore of Sevilla, who retold the stories of Plinius the Elder and of Petronius. According to their accounts, supposedly an inventor once came before the Emperor Tiberius. He presented a bowl to the emperor, which the inventor claimed was indestructible. Tiberius tried to shatter it on the floor, but there was no dent in the bowl. Supposedly as a reaction, the emperor had the inventor immediately executed, fearing that should the recipe for this material be made public, it would devalue gold and silver and cause an economic collapse. Plinius himself claims that the story is more widely spread than well authenticated, so we should be skeptical. But a recent paper from a researcher claims that such a technology would have been possible in Roman times. According to him, the vitrum flexile could have been a mixture of boron trioxide, known as borax, which was available in antiquity, with glass. Heating sand to very high temperatures and mixing it with borax could have yielded glass with flexible properties comparable to modern-day borosilicate glass. So if the story of the vitrum flexile would be true, it would be another example where the ancients surprise us with technology way beyond what we would have thought them capable of. We can thus see that the Romans were in many ways an extremely advanced civilization, and when the Imperium fell in the West, Europe was plunged into a technological dark age where many inventions would not return for hundreds, if not for 1,000 years. When the empire also fell in the East, in its final act, the empire would shine the flame of antiquity one last time onto Europe, igniting the Renaissance when many scholars fled from Constantinople westward and brought a lot of lost knowledge with them. We can thus see that we owe a lot of our own inventions to the Greeks and to the Romans, and can only wonder what would have happened had Rome not fallen. Thank you for watching this video, dear viewers, and a big thanks especially to our dear supporters on Patreon and via the YouTube membership. You people are awesome, and I'm sure Maiorian would be proud of you that you support a channel bearing his name. And if you are not supporting this channel yet via Patreon, please consider to do so, as this will allow us to make better animations and custom drawings for the channel. You can even join now directly on YouTube. Both Patreon and the YouTube membership will give you many benefits, such as exclusive access to our Discord server, and for higher ranks even suggesting topics or participating in exclusive live streams. And if you are interested in what you would have seen at the Roman borders, or in the city of Rome itself when the Western Roman Empire fell, you can watch these two videos here. I say thanks again to all friends of Roman history, gratias amici imperii Romani, and bene vale.